Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Spirit Rescue Talk. I'm your host, Amy Major. As you can tell, I don't have my co host with me today, Jordan Start. She actually decided she had to go to a wedding today. I have to say, weddings are actually kind of important. And with today's theme, talking about love as well, it's absolutely the theme. So I hope Jordan's having a wonderful time at the wedding. As you know, spring is for lovers. So we're going to get a lot of that this spring and summer. But I do have an amazing guest on with me today. It is Bev Mann-Mediumship from the Heart. She's actually been a friend of mine for many years. She actually came over to the States years ago, did a workshop at my center where we met, and we've been friends ever since. She is an international medium, clairvoyant medium, teacher, author, and inspirer. She works all over the world, inspiring so many people, connecting you to loved ones, and just to raise awareness of our continual experience and existence beyond the physical world. And of course, you know, I love having all sorts of mediums, paranormal investigators, psychics, and guests all over the world on the show to talk about many different modalities. And Bev Mann had to be a guest on the show. She's just absolutely amazing. And I love everything that she does. And I was just telling her before we got on the show, I was like, every time I see angel wings, I think of her because she carries such an amazing angelic presence everywhere she goes. And whenever I see them, I'm like, Bev, I'm thinking of you. And maybe it's just Spirit's way of saying just stay connected because she's an absolutely amazing resource of spiritual knowledge in this world. And I'm just so eager and so happy to have her on the show. So I just want to say a big hello to Bev. It's so wonderful to have you on. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's my absolute pleasure and honor. And I have to say, I love the intro to the show. It's absolutely full of energy and it's absolutely wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I do. I love that song. I had to have that song from the moment I heard it. I'm like, yeah, you know, it's just uplifting and it's kind of a little bit of rock, but it kind of starts with that little bit of that Western feel in the beginning. So I'm like, and I'm not a Western person. I'm like, I was really getting into it. I'm like, oh, this is really great. So it's a lot of fun. Today, I'd really love for you to kind of introduce yourself to um, our watchers because we haven't had you on the show here before, and I think they're kind of just wondering, who is Bev Mann? Where has she been from, and what does she do exactly? So I'd love if you can kind of give everybody a little bit of a background to you and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you so much, Amy. Well, thank you for inviting me. I have actually, as you said in your introduction, I have been over to Boston a few times and over to Salem and worked at the Spiritualist Church there. And I absolutely love the area in New Hampshire. I've been in New Hampshire. So it's great to reconnect, hopefully, with some people that might be coming on board that have met me before. So when people ask me, like, where did my journey start? I have to say, as a small child from birth, really, I've always had that connection to spirit, even though I didn't know that I had it. So from a little girl, I was often woken up in the middle of the night. I would have people sitting at the bottom of my bed, trying to talk to me. And my parents, particularly my mother, would be really freaked out about it. Like, who is she talking to? And sometimes I would wake up screaming in the night because, when you're 4 years old, you don't understand who this strange woman is at the bottom of your bed. And apparently I used to talk a lot in my sleep. And my mum used to say that she used to try and listen in to see if she could get, like, later on in life, obviously not when I'm 4 years old, but when I was a little bit older, like, could she get any insight into my love life? Like, who's she talking to, But it was like, obviously I was talking to spirit, and wasn't aware of it. And it wasn't until, like, when I went to school, I realized that things were happening to me that didn't happen to other people. Obviously, when you're young, you don't understand about sensitivity. And that's one of the things that I like to talk about with parents, because I do have a lot of parents that come to me with their children because their children are having the same thing. They're having, like, what the parents call nightmares, but they're not actually nightmares, because I believe I trained under the SNU. I trained at the Arthur Findlay College in the UK. Many of you may have heard of it. And our belief is that up until about the age of 7, when we become indoctrinated by society, by schools, religion, etc., until that time, children retain their connection to the spirit world. And that's why children often have imaginary friends and these dreams, or they may say, oh, I saw Uncle George, he was, or grandma, and she was talking to me. Because there is that natural, beautiful connection that they still have up until about that age when it all changes. So they were the things that were happening to me, and I had a great sensitivity, and I always found I was different at school. I felt like I was never really included. I always felt a little bit left out. And that's one of the things I teach, signs of, those that are super sensitive, because it's the super sensitive souls that make the good mediums. And these are all signs, indicators that you are a light worker, that you are someone who connects in with spirit, because sometimes you connect in better with the spirit world than with people on the earth plane. So my upbringing was quite difficult, but my father was quite spiritual, and he used to take me to healing. He believed in healing, whereas my mum was very, I came from a traditional Jewish family, and my mum was not overly religious, but, she was traditional, whereas my dad was far more open-minded, and he used to take me to healing. So I was introduced to all of that very early on in my life. And from about probably the age of 13 or something like that, I would go to healing with my father. And skip forward a number of years. I lost my father when I was about to give birth to my first child, which was really a horrific experience for me, because I was so very close to my father. And when I knew that my dad was very ill and he was diagnosed for the second time, I called up the healing sanctuary that we used to go to. And she said to me, I was 8 months pregnant. And she said, Bev, I'm really sorry, but this is your time. And that was his time, sorry. And that was not the answer I was expecting. I was expecting her to say, oh, don't worry, he'll be okay. And she didn't. And that completely threw me. And I remember laying down, heavily pregnant, and laying on the bed and seeing this, and I don't often talk about this, but a huge light coming towards me, which I can only actually probably describe as an angelic experience. This light was just phenomenal. It was just huge, and it was just coming closer and closer to me. And then in the end I said, can you stop and go to my dad? Because I knew it was like a healing light. And then it went. And then after my father passed, I went to see several mediums, and they all said to me that I have that gift. And one in particular said to me, you should be sitting where I'm sitting, and I want you to give me a reading, which totally freaked me out, talk about put me on the hot spot. And I started telling her things that I wouldn't have known. And that kind of opened me up to it, really. And then going forwards, after I had my second child, and my children were quite small, a family member invited me along to a spiritual circle, a development group in London, where I live. And I went to this group, and I sat down with the teacher, and there was a few of us, and I felt quite inferior. They'd been going for a long time, and we were told to meditate and get a link. And 20 odd years ago, it's like, well, how do you meditate? What do you do? Because I think back in those days, it wasn't such a, out there. I don't know if you would agree, Amy. It wasn't, unless you're in that scene. So I closed my eyes, and all I could think about was shopping and the kids and whatever. And when we all came round and she asked everybody, how did you get on? What did you see? Everyone was saying, oh, I stood in a beautiful fountain of water and all these colors and all this. and my guides came to me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm dreading it when she gets to me. Like, oh, could she just bypass me? And she came to me and she said, well, what did you get? And I said, nothing. And she said, well, you must have got something. I said, no, sorry, nothing. So she said, well, just take yourself back there. I said, okay. I said, all right then. When I came in, there was a man sitting in that chair over there, and he looked like this. This is what he was wearing. This is what he looked like. This felt like his personality. And I went on to describe this dressing gown that he apparently always used to wear. And her mouth fell open, and she said, actually, that was my late husband who died 6 months ago. That was his favorite chair. That's what he wore. And it kind of freaked me out, plus all the other people in the circle. And the second time I went back there, we did psychometry, which is where you have to, hold an object and feel into the energy and like read it. So I put my hand in the hat and I picked up a ring. And when it came to my turn, she said, what do you get from this? And all these words just came out from nowhere. And again, her mouth fell open. She said, oh my God, you've just given the complete eulogy that the rabbi had said at my late husband's funeral. So it's all starting to freak me out, let alone anyone else. So I did continue other circles, and then I found my way to the Arthur Finlay College, which I've been to many, many times, probably 25 times. I always believe in investing in your education. I think it's very important, because the connection is very important, but it's also about learning how to not only deliver a message, but also about the philosophy of spirit, and where it all comes from, and how to handle it. Because I always say to my students, whatever you give someone, they're going to take it with them forever and a day. So there is that moral compass. We have personal responsibility as to how we deliver a message. So I think it's really important. Yes, it's great to have that gift, but we need to know and learn and how to cultivate it,
I think it's interesting that you said that you had to get that, you went to a medium and they told you that you were a medium. And I see that so often, because that even happened to me. I didn't go to a medium. I went to an astrologer, and the astrologer told me that I was psychic, and I thought she was crazy. And then seeing a medium on TV, and then spirits actually told me I was a medium. And I'm thinking I'm just hearing voices in my head. This isn't real. And they're telling me I could do the same thing until they started showing me signs. So I started paying attention to all the other mediums that I've been interviewing and talking with throughout the years. They all needed something of an invitation or an awareness to know that they were a medium. They weren't born knowing that they were a medium. They knew there was something different about them. They knew that they could do certain things. They knew they could connect and feel things, but the concept and awareness of being a medium themselves wasn't necessarily known to them. So many of us needed that wake up to say, this is who you are. And noticed you had the same type of experience.
And often when I do readings for people, I do a lot on Zoom. And even over the camera, I can sense their energy straight away. I know straight away if someone's a medium or someone's a light worker. And quite often they'll say, oh, you're not the first person to tell me that. So I agree with you a lot of the time. And also the first experience you have, that first reading that you give to someone, is often the most profound, like what happened to me. And there's no denying that you're making this stuff up. Like, how does it come to you? So I feel like sometimes it feels like a bolt out the blue. You have to sit up and take notice. And a lot of people are in denial. But I do believe as well that we are all born with a gift. It's some people are more tuned into it. So when some people say, oh, I was born a medium, I do believe, like, they say we're only using like 8% of our brain, and there is like a 92% that we're not using. So people can learn to, cultivate the gift and develop their inherent skills that we're all born with. but there are a lot of people in denial about it. But they can't explain things that happen, like, the psychic experiences, like deja vu and, the sensing of energy, or
Yeah,
what happened 2,000 years ago, with Jesus, or 5,000
right.
years ago. But they won't believe what happened in my room here, like they're also profound experiences. So I find that quite strange.
I think it's interesting because it is true. Everybody is a medium. And I used to get in some heated discussions with some mediums years ago, like 15 years ago, when they would always say, oh, you have to be born a medium in order to do this work. You can't, it isn't a learned behavior. So I was thinking, okay, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't sit right with me. Because like, why would God or infinite spirit want to keep anyone from reconnecting in with their loved ones, or for just in other souls in general? So I went to my guides and I asked them, I said, so was I born a medium? Because everyone says I'm a medium. And their answer surprised me. And it was very, very simple. Their answer was, you are a medium and you decided to be born. And I was just like, and in that instant, I heard, everyone is a medium.
Oh,
And they
good.
said, I chose before I came into this life to enhance a remembrance of connecting to other souls. And because I was going to use it as a tool to do my life purpose. Now, other people are mediums, but they've decided not to remember that, or to refocus and align their energy something more grounded. And they don't want to remember because of their life purpose. But they essentially said everyone on this planet is a medium. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are supposed to be mediums as a remembrance of who they are. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they should be a medium, but they can. It is a natural gift. And they essentially said it's one soul connecting to another soul. That's all it is. And just learning to listen to that communication. So I absolutely agree with you 100% on that.
And I think that, like you decided, like myself, to come back as a light and to spread the word and to teach and inspire other people to open up to the light. But not everybody wants to do that. And some people switch on the TV or go and see a film and they're absolutely freaked out because, that's how they make their money in the media, through film and TV, that it's a scary process. And, or religion or schools, you don't want to be different. You want to fit into the box. And so there is a desire to fit into the box. And religion also teaches you to be fearful. I often read, like, because I'm Jewish, so we've got like the Passover coming up. And I know that we have our big meal, which is the Seder night. And we recount the story of the Jewish exodus from Egypt, and it talks all about the wrath and fury of God. And I question that. And I remember saying to my ex-husband's family, and my ex-husband was like looking at me like, oh, please don't start. And I said, can I just ask you a question? They go, what? And I go, do you think God loves you? And they go, yeah, of course. I said, well, if he loves you, then why would he want to thwart his wrath and fury on you? Why would he want to be furious and angry with you? My God isn't like that. My God loves me, whoever I am, whatever I am. So I don't get that. That's just me. I feel like you said, we're here to spread the light.
We are. And my father was Jewish as well, with his family. And I'm half Jewish. And growing up, my father actually did not believe in the afterlife. That he believed that, and he said a lot of people in the Jewish community believe in God, but they don't believe in communicating with the afterlife. He actually didn't believe in the afterlife at all. So as a 5-year-old child who did believe in the afterlife, we'd have arguments with my father about existing beyond this experience. And he's like, no, no, no. So I thought it was very interesting that my Jewish father came through a year after he died in a spiritualist, while we were kind of getting ready for a seance in the spiritualist church in the basement of a Masonic temple. that's a whole other story right there. But my father did decide to come in, and he actually materialized his voice and everybody heard him. And then
Wow.
another medium connected to him and validated everything about him right there just a few minutes later. And the first thing, you're thinking, I'm going to tell my father how much I've missed him and how much I love him. But no, my personality, the first thing out of my mouth was, I told you so. I told you there was an afterlife, and I told you were going to exist after this life. And then I said, I love you, I miss you. But it was so validating that he came through that way, knowing his background as well.
I love the way that spirit work. I really do. So do you mind if I tell you a quick story about what happened to me? Because I
Absolutely.
think your viewers will really like this. So I had someone come to me for a reading. She emailed me, and she said she wanted to come for a reading. She was emailing me from a different address. She said that she had another reading from a amazing reading from another medium. But then her husband kind of poo-pooed it and said, oh, all the information that you were given could easily be found out on Company's House. I don't know if you have the same in the States, but we have like Company's House. So all these names that she came up with, this medium, or her children's name, X, Y, and Z. The husband said she could have found that out on Company's House. So she's heard about me and she wants to come for a reading. And sometimes it's very difficult, as you know yourself as a medium, when someone has built up barriers, because it's almost like someone sitting like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to her, I'll read for her on one condition, that she has an open mind. And she needs to open her heart, because if she's going to be like I felt if she was going to be testing me, it's not going to work, because there has to be some kind of, flow of energy between us. So anyway, cut long story short, she came to me for reading. She insisted on coming to my house rather than online. She came to my house. Now, this is the intelligence of spirit here. Instead of giving me like the proverbial grandmother or whoever is in spirit for this lovely lady, what happened was that they gave me the information of a gentleman, which was her friend, that it was her best friend's husband who had passed, and they would go away together as two couples on holidays and whatever. And he was giving me all this information, down to his accent, down to everything, how he passed, what he was like, the personal jokes that they used to share. There was stuff that, you couldn't Google, and that's what a good medium is looking for. The information that you cannot Google, like what was the special music they listened to, what were their phrases, because anyone could look up an obituary and to say what they did for a living and how many children they had. Not that a good medium would do that. No one would want to do that. I don't know any mediums that, but you always get good and bad in any profession. Even, you have bad car service men, you have bad builders, you have rookie in everything. But the beauty of this, what happened was that the reading came through was that I couldn't have done any homework before, even if I'd wanted to. This friend and I went on to say that he really liked the white top that her friend had bought, the one who'd lost her husband. He really liked the white top that she bought, and even described the shop, and that he was with her when she bought it. And it was beautiful, because she went back to the wife, her friend, and told her everything. So the reading actually wasn't for her personally, but it was all for her friend, to prove that there is an afterlife and that mediums don't cheat. Not the good ones anyway, because a good medium won't want to know anything about someone before they come for a reading. You have to have, for me, I say I'm an artist, I've got to have a clean palette. I don't want to know anything about anyone. I don't want to know who you've lost, nothing. Because once I know something, yourself, you've got that danger of slipping into the psychic mode, which is different to when you're working with spirit. You're working up here rather than down here.
Yes.
So yeah, I love I just had to drop that story in, because they know what they're doing. They know. They're so clever.
Well, there's so many mediums out there that do read different ways. Like with me, I do connect to the spirit world and I bring through relatives. But the one thing that I love the most, because I've been doing it since I was 2 years old, is I love connecting to spirit guides, because the biggest focus that I have in the work that I do is bringing through information from their guides to go over their life purpose, their karma, their wounding, the reason they're here, their connections, their soul groups, knowing information on a more of a level of their life, and to make sure that they're living the most successful life that they can. I do sometimes have family members or friends step in that will come in, what I say, in a guide position, because they're helping them guide through those particular scenarios. But I do have to say there's a lot of criticism for mediumship because of what they've seen in the media and on TV. And you can have the best medium out there giving details and validation of information, but it still won't be good enough for the critic that is looking for the absolute best reading ever. And mediums are human. We don't get everything right 100%. Some mediums do. Some mediums are spot on all the time, but not. But I've talked to the spirit world. They're like, there is no medium that's 100% accurate with anything, because we have our own faults. We get tired, we get blocked, but they're always kind of explaining mediumship should come from your heart. It should come from being able to connect to the spirit world and giving whatever the spirit world feels that sitter or the person you're talking to needs to know at that moment. The medium should never interpret or expect or have biases of what information should come through. And quite often, most mediums will never even know the client before or after. It literally just comes to a channel, and the medium needs to know that they've done the best work that they can. It's very difficult when you have people sitting there going, tell me everything or I'm not going to believe you. It's like, would you do that to a doctor? Probably not. So why do mediums get criticized so much? I'm having a hard time.
Sometimes you feel like a performing monkey. And
Yes.
I'll go to a party and they say, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm a clairvoyant medium. Oh, prove it. And I said, it's not my job. I don't perform. But there is a lot of pressure on mediums. And I always say you're only as good as your last reading, and every reading is different. And so for me, because I work mainly with connecting with loved ones, and my job is to get that one person that they want. But I can't cherry pick who's going to come through. I open the door, and whoever wants to come forward will come forward. So sometimes it's one person, sometimes it can be 5 people that come forward. And I always say that the person that comes forward is what somebody needs. So sometimes someone might come along and they want to speak to their mother or their father, but actually they might be severely depressed. And who will come forward will be someone that they may have known, that would have known, I should say, that they would have known, who went through a lot of depression, who may have taken their own life. So they understand about the power of depression and how it makes you feel. And what they want to do is come forward to give someone that advice, and which perhaps their parents who may not have experienced depression wouldn't be able to do. So I always feel,
Exactly.
and sometimes they might need a reading for loved one, may think they want to come and speak to their loved ones, but sometimes, like you're saying, a guide might need to come through. It might be about life path. It might be that they're a medium and they've come to me because actually they need to get on the pathway to become a medium themselves. So we never know. Gordon Higginson, who was the pioneer of spiritualism, he said it's not the medium's job to know the purpose of a reading. So sometimes, like you said, you can't read for everyone, and there is no medium that's infallible. It's happened to me before where I haven't got a connection. I don't have any ego in that way. And if it doesn't work, I will give someone their money back. But most of the time, it's probably because there's something else that needs to be said. And it's about keeping an open channel, an open mind,
And you did explain that you do teach mediumship as well. What do you find is one of the hardest hurdles to overcome when you are a new developing medium, and when you are trying to learn how to connect? What would you teach some of your students to do to kind of get over the hurdles of, I feel like I'm not connecting to anything? I know what I would do as a teacher, but I'd love to hear yours.
I love this question. It's just to get their mind out of it, because as we were talking earlier about ego, it's about letting go of the ego. It's about letting go of your mind, moving your mind to the side and allowing spirit to come in. And as soon as you overthink it, you slip back down into the psychic, and spirit are working, at a higher level, I believe, from well, they say from the heart or upwards, but I would actually say mediumship also, not only from the heart but also from the solar plexus. So you're working upwards. So as soon as you start to let your mind cloud with any doubt, for example, I feel like a man, or maybe it's a woman, no, maybe it's a man, and you're overthinking it, you're letting the Bev Mann mind come into it. You mustn't overthink it. Go with what your first gut feeling is. Don't allow someone in front of you to put you off. Just be in your own space. In fact, that's really actually why I prefer doing my readings online, because I haven't got anyone in front of me as such, only in front of the screen, and it's just between me and the spirit world. I got my chairs that were in front of me, and I imagine spirit just coming and sitting down and having a conversation with me, which they do. So it's about getting your own mind out the way, because you have to be up there with them, not down here with yourself.
Right.
And
a
lot of students, when they get their first moment, their first connection, there's nothing like it. And I'm sure you'll agree as a teacher, there's nothing like it when they get their first magic moment and they've done that first connection. I love teaching. Teaching is my passion. And I love watching people get in their wow moments. It makes it all worthwhile.
Well, you do also teach a little bit through your books, correct? Because we did want to discuss your 2 newest books that have come out recently as well. I'll put them up on the screen so everybody can take a look at them. Can you tell us a little bit about the books that you've recently written?
So my first book was Spirit Scandal and Sparkly Shoes, Confessions of a Kosher Medium. So my other, as well as Bev Mann-Mediumship from the Heart, I'm also known as the Kosher Medium. And basically the reason why I wrote this book, so I was, after my divorce, I felt like I wanted to set the record straight. I've been married for 28 years. I've been with my ex-husband for 33 years. I got into spiritualism. I found like my pathway was going different. Friendships were changing. And I do explain to a lot of students when they're coming to me and they want to start developing, that they will start to look at the world differently and all their surroundings and the people around them. It will affect the way they see things. And everything, your friendships, your relationships. And sometimes you feel like you outgrow people. And I feel that that's kind of like what happened for me. And I wanted to write about it. And growing up, I always admired Doris Stokes, who my father loved. I don't know if anyone is aware of Doris Stokes. She was a very famous medium in the last century. She used to pack the audiences out. And I know that she works very much beside me, but at the time I didn't realize that. And one day I was working and I met this lovely lady called Linda Dearsley. She was doing palm readings and I was doing my readings at a spirit fair. And we became very good friends. And she co-wrote all Doris Stokes' mediumship books. And Doris Stokes was one of the first people to put mediumistic books out there. She wrote Voices in My Ear. I don't know if you're aware of it, Amy.
No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay, well, I say read it. It's a fantastic book. And she wrote many books like that. And you talk to a lot of mediums, especially in the UK, they will all know Doris Stokes and will all say, I read her books. So I met Linda, and Linda used to come over to me and I said, right, give me some advice about writing books. And I had like writer's block. So I said, look, will you help me with this? So we kind of like co-wrote this book together with Spirit. And I was going to write about how my life had changed since I'd opened up to spirit. And then spirit took over and really directed the book in a whole different way. It's more about the spiritual journey, my life, how I grew up, telling the story like I told you, about the many experiences, how I went to work abroad, the stories that I had, and also how I chose to, and I was asked, did I want to become a teacher at the Arthur Findlay College, because I absolutely adored it, but I needed to give up my Judaism in order to teach. You have to be a member of the SNU, which I was, but I had to denounce my religion, which I wasn't going to do that. You know, my mum was still alive at the time, and it's part, you can't deny something that's part of you. It's
Right.
more than religion. It's a race, it's a tradition. So I moved away from, I wanted to set the record straight on everything. And I was actually told by the SNU that I should rescind my membership if I'm not a spiritualist. And I said, well, I'm a spiritualist in my head, but in my heart, I'm Jewish. So in the book, I talk about that, what happened to me, a few of the encounters I had, and just my story. Growing up, not knowing I was a medium, and I love my sparkly shoes, so that hence the title, Spirit Scandal and Sparkly Shoes.
Yes.
And a lot of my friends said to me, Bev, I so enjoyed the book, read it in 2-3 days. I didn't know all that stuff about you. Even my closest friends said, wow, I never knew that. And a lot of people said they could relate to the story. So that was that book. And then the second book, Swipe Right, is my latest book. And it's basically taking the Mickey, the Michael out of myself. I don't know if what you call it, but taking the Mickey, we say in the UK, which is about a spoof of myself, because I'm supposed to be a psychic. And yet when it comes to dating, it's a nightmare. I get it wrong all the time. So I'm just kind of taking the Mickey out myself. But all the stories in there have a spiritual connotation, about how spirit have come to me, spoken to me, even down to one story, which everyone loves this story. I had a date with a guy, and the night before the date, I was woken up by a man in my bedroom. He came right into my face, and he's looking at me, and it's it was a little bit scary, intimidating, get out of my room, go, like that. I didn't think anything more of it. Next day, of course, I go for my date, and I'm talking to the guy, and he said, oh, my father was this great spiritualist, and he really, really would have loved you. And he was talking about him and how he was involved in it all. And I said, oh, have you got a picture of your father? And he got out a picture of his father, and lo and behold, it was the man who came to visit me the night before.
Checking you out.
Checking me out. So I said to him, look, I don't want to freak you out, but this guy came to see me the night before. He goes, oh, he wasn't freaked at all. He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, that's exactly what my dad would do. He'd want to check you out, see what you like, but he would have approved of you. I said, yeah, I felt that he did. Anyway, I went out with this guy for a couple of months, but it didn't work out. But it was a very funny story. And there are quite a few funny stories in there. Swipe Right, The Kosher Medium Goes Dating, Confessions of a Psychic Looking for Love. Because I always say I'm a better medium than a psychic. So talking to spirit is much stronger than, I think I give people too much of a wide berth. I'm a great believer in other people's kindness, but
it's not easy for mediums and psychics to date in general, unless the other person is another medium or psychic, or just open to the work that you do. Because, it's particularly for women, it's hard to find men that are accepting of the work that we do. I got lucky with mine.
Oh,
So.
Oh, I got to say to you that I went out with two or three mediumistic men, and I think two were Jewish, and it was an absolute nightmare. Sorry, I shouldn't say that in case they listen in, but who cares? But anyway, I'm not naming names, but
Nope.
it doesn't always work. Sometimes I feel in life you need balance, a little bit of yin and yang.
Right.
So for me personally, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But these books look really interesting as far as your personal journey with this, and other mediums that are going through the same journey as you, being able to read that and look up the information. Very curious. It's a lot of fun, and it's great to read books that are a lot of fun to read as well. It is. It's hard. I got lucky with my husband with dating. He actually reached out to me because he was watching those paranormal shows, and I had to tell him to stop watching them. Sorry, paranormal peeps out there, but he's like watching all these shows, and he started attracting a lot of heavy energy into his home, which I had to clear. And so he and I just started talking for a while. He was very open to it, but he was also very, very Irish Catholic. So bringing me into his family was a bit odd, as being a psychic and medium as well. But it was very interesting when both of his parents passed. Both of his parents, who were very Catholic, came to me first in their transition and told me to let him know that they were okay. So it's very interesting how open everyone becomes to mediumship the moment they cross through that veil and they let go of their conditions and biases and judgments of mediumship. Because the moment they go and they can see that you can see them, they're a firm believer in what you can do. So it's nice to be able to have that support with the people that you're dating.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people that come to me who the clients have said, I would never have thought that person would come through. They were so anti it, but they do want to come back and say something. But yeah, the book, I mean, there are some really funny stories that, my dating life, I say to my friends, I got enough here to write a book. Oh, I have written a book, but like enough to write another one. It's just funny. And I think that dating in your latter years, like for me, I was married for such a long time, and then you go back into the dating pool and you haven't dated for since the 80s, the 1980s. It's also different now. You've got online dating, you've got the swiping. That's why the book's called Swipe Right.
Right.
So it's kind of like the psychic gets it wrong. There's hope for all of us,
Everybody gets it wrong, regardless of whether you're psychic or not. We're human. We have human emotions just like everyone else. But what are your future plans? What are you thinking of doing? What projects do you have coming in for you over the next year or so?
Well, obviously I'm still doing my mediumship and teaching, and I've got an event coming up on I think it's the 21st of April. It's on my page. With the lovely medium Carol Bromley. We're doing a demonstration in London, a demonstration of mediumship. What I have found, though, is especially since my divorce, I have been on a huge journey. And this is something that's very, very close to my heart now, what I'm going to talk about. I really want to help empower all people, but especially women, because there is, whether you instigate the divorce or not, there's an element of a sense of losing your self-worth, your identity, of who you are after divorce. And I've done a lot of work on myself, and lots of people say to me, you're a completely different person to who you used to be. And that's because I have worked on myself. And I know there is a lot out there in the media about it, but I think there's nothing better than personal experience. So I'd like to run some workshops helping people, or one-to-one helping people empower themselves, because it's so important. I mean, I would never go out even for a meal on my own. Now I've done a lot of solo traveling. I've been on solo cruises. I've been to India on my own. And it's the most amazing feeling to do something and to realize that we don't need anyone else to complete us, man or woman. Nobody needs anyone to complete them. It's all about the love that you have for yourself and the self-respect that you have for yourself. And it has, I know it's an old saying, love has to start from within, but it's so true. That self-respect has to come from within, because once you respect yourself, no one can put you down or push you down. But it's been such a journey for me, huge, massive. And I just want to share that with other people, because I feel like it's so much needed. There are so many people, lonely people on their own. They don't even let onto their own family and friends the way that they're feeling, and they're relying on antidepressants, and they just get a little bit lost.
They do. They do.
And it's a subject that is just so close to my heart. And what I want to do is work with spirit. So I feel like my work is changing. I'm still working with spirit, but I work inspirationally. Even my workshops, even though I can pre-plan all my workshops, my mediumistic workshops, I always allow spirit to come in. And you've seen me work at a workshop. I just put my spirit hat on and I let them do the teaching. It's not Bev Mann, it's spirit. So whatever I'm going to be doing to help inspire other people, it's going to be spirit-led. It's about me working with spirit to give each individual, whether they're working a group scenario or whether it's one-to-one, helping them come back to themselves, help them come back full circle into their true essence, their true light, into who they truly are.
Beautiful.
That's it really. That is my soul purpose. We started off talking about soul mission and what your soul mission was, and it took me a while. Never think that I was a medium. Here am I, a medium, giving one-to-one readings, working through the soul of someone who's passed a spirit through my soul to my client's soul, that soul to soul communication. And now being able to utilize their loved ones in spirit to help empower them, to bring them back, not only to where they were, but beyond. Because we all change and evolve. We all change and evolve. We're not the same who we were, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even yesterday.
We're all here to support each other. What we go through teaches us lessons, and then we pass those lessons on to others. And that's our way of showing love and devotion to everybody else's evolution as a soul as well.
But I think that's why as well, like people like you and me come back here.
Right.
Certain individuals who have, decided to come back with that mission that you were talking about, to bring that light to what that mission is. Sometimes we don't even know the mission until, if you'd have asked me like 2 years ago, what's your mission? It is forever changing, isn't it?
It is always changing, because we're changing. And so let it be, let it unfold the way it needs to unfold. And so many people feel lost in their lives, going, what am I here for? What's my purpose? And I always tell people, what is it that means something to you? What are the lessons you've learned? What have you gone through? What can you pass to other individuals that you've learned in your experience? That could be a purpose for you as well. Use your passion as your purpose as well. So, but our purposes are constantly changing as we are evolving as well. So,
but a lot of people, though, unfortunately, sit on those emotions. They're scared to voice it because they feel like they're a failure, and sometimes they feel like that to their closest, not just outside of their circle, but to their family and friends. They don't want to talk about it, and that's what's so important, to be able to have someone who's taken that road, taken that journey, and had to rebuild themselves.
Well, working with spirit guides, one thing they've always said is, you take your biggest wound in your life and you transform it, and it becomes the greatest gift you give to the world.
I love that. That's beautiful.
And so they're like, bring on the wounds. They say they will eventually become your greatest gift once you're able to fully transform from that wound. So,
but I do feel like sometimes those wounds can, sometimes someone will touch that wound and it will open up a little bit. It's about also learning to manage and control it. And I've learned a lot about that. It's about when to notice the signs when someone is triggering you or something triggering you. And you know, because those wounds, like you say, they're there. They recover, but they're still like scabs, aren't they? They can still be picked at, unfortunately, in my experience.
Well, that's why we keep coming back to keep working at it. So it looks like you're going to do some amazing work in the future with these workshops. And I know many of our viewers are probably going to want to reach out to you because they've learned how amazing you are today. How can they reach out if they'd like to connect?
Thank you, Amy. I have a website, which is bevmann.com. So please do have a look. That's BEVMANN.com. Or you can email me on bev@bevmann.com. I'm also on Facebook, just under my name, Bev Mann. And I have a page, Bev Mann-Mediumship from the Heart. And on Instagram, I'm #medium Bev Mann. And I'm on TikTok.
She's all over. She's all over. And I will post your sites as well, so many of our viewers can click right on it and get right to you as well. So
thank you. And maybe there's going to be a third book, because that medium that originally told me that I was a medium said I was going to write 3 books. So I'm 2 in. So
we're looking forward to it.
Have to wait what number 3 is going to be about.
Yeah, I was told I was going to write 5+, and I'm just like, what are you talking about? I'm not a writer. And Spirit's like, yes, you are. Spirit knows what we can do before we can.
I know. I said I don't even read a book, let alone write a book. But they know what they're talking about.
C'est la vie. It's what it's about. So thank you so much for coming on today. It was an honor to have you here. It was so wonderful to really connect with you again. It's been so long since we've talked, and I really would love for you to stay connected and be on again in our future.
I'd love to actually come back to the States. I had such a ball. I loved it there. I love the people. So, you know, I'm open to any invitations that anyone wants me to come over and run another workshop or do something inspiring for them. Or I'm available for readings as well, one-to-one readings. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to do those over Zoom. So yeah, I'm hoping to connect with people. That's what it's about, spreading the love.
That's what it's about. Right there. So thank you, all of you, for viewing today. We look forward to catching up with you guys next time. Again, if you want to reach out to us here at Spirit Rescue Talk, it's spiritrescuetalk@gmail.com. We do review those often, and we do answer a lot of the questions that viewers do send to us, and we bring on a lot of guests that help answer those questions as well. We look forward to seeing you guys next time. Stay in touch.